everyone. I'm Noreen Purcell Dillman, the creator of the Healthy Peaceful podcast. About me, I describe myself as a former attorney, YouTuber, natural food chef, wellness guru. No, that's not a typo. It actually means precious one. If you haven't been following me, you may be wondering what this podcast of 4 years is all about. It's a place where I interview individuals on topics pertaining to the meaning of health and well-being, personal and collective consciousness, and maximizing full human potential. This episode is a part of a series between me and Chef Rich LaMarita. During this series, we delve into the 8 principles of food in the ancient system of health and well-being called Ayurveda. What I really like about this series and what I feel Chef Rich literally brings to the table, and I've studied many Ayurvedic cookbooks and other written materials about the Ayurvedic approach to food. I've discovered few, however, written by a professional chef who is also completely in tune with what appeals to the American palate. So here, instead of presenting yet another litany of lists and do's and don'ts of what to eat if you want to try Ayurveda, Rich asks us to join him on a journey of the senses. I've discovered, and I'm sure you will too, that no one wants to embrace an Ayurvedic approach to food and health unless there is some sensory delight, meaning pleasure of the senses. So let's delve in with Chef Rich, acknowledging that initially we may feel confused, but with some practice and Ayurvedic approach to our daily food will become second nature. Naturally, we will begin to see our health transform. And once this magic starts to happen, we will want to fully embrace Ayurvedic principles. The first principle is Prakriti. We often hear this word referred to in Ayurveda to describe our own individual nature, essentially what our doshic makeup was at birth, our own mind-body type, and the North Star for the balancing principles that Ayurveda furnishes. We don't often hear it referred to when we speak about food, but food also has a Prakriti, an inherent nature. Specifically, Rich will bring us on a journey through the 6 tastes and how, according to Ayurveda, these tastes have a unique effect on our Prakriti, our own mind-body type. The second principle of food that Rich will introduce is Karana, or preparation, and how different methods of food preparation impact our physiology and mental outlook. The third principle is Samyoga, or food combining. Without becoming too rigid, we want to become aware of how Ayurveda views different combinations of food, and what are the definite faux pas and what we can regularly incorporate for maximum health and well-being. The fourth principle is Rashi, or amount. Ayurveda has a formula for the quantity that is considered too little, too much, and just right. The state of our appetite, or what is called Agni, will also be considered, as well as times of day. Caution here, we may append that universal American belief that a large breakfast is required to fuel your day. The fifth principle is Dashen, or the source of food, and where we consume the food. We are all familiar with what is now universally adopted by those who truly care about their health. Eat what grows locally and organic, if at all possible. Yet we all continue to enjoy our avocados. Rich will share the Ayurvedic view here. The sixth principle is Kala, or time, and will include daily eating habits, meaning what times a day are most appropriate and the quantity of the food for each meal. Kala, or time, also relates to each season and how our diets will change with the seasons. We will also address times of life. What we eat when we are 62 and the quantities we eat at 62 are dramatically different than what we eat when we're age 12. The seventh principle is called Upayoga Samstha, or rules for food intake. Here, Rich expounds on the culture of eating and our habits, essentially how we behave before, during, and after a meal. The eighth principle, or Upayukta, considers the person who is eating, essentially his or her mental state. In Ayurveda, these states are called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And also the strength of our digestion. Is it balanced or imbalanced? And how do we remedy imbalanced digestion? Now, a bit about Chef Rich. Currently, Chef Rich LaMarita calls New York City home. He was a chef instructor at the Natural Gourmet Institute in Manhattan for over 25 years. This is where Rich and I met, as I was a student there. NGI was formed by Anne Marie Colvin, a well-known proponent of the connection between food and health, also a proponent of natural foods and the author of many books pertaining to these topics, including her seminal work titled Food and Healing. While at NGI, Rich's specialties included the following: vegetarian cuisine, vegan, Indian, and Italian. Rich has also worked with numerous well-known chefs in New York City, including Floyd Cardoz, Dan Kluger, and Ben Pollinger. He has also worked as a private chef for many notable families and as a private instructor in Manhattan and the Hamptons since 1995. Rich has been a practitioner and teacher of Ayurveda for 35 years. He has studied with Vedic and Ayurvedic master Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, TL. Rich has led seminars on Ayurvedic diet, cooking, yoga, and meditation throughout the US, Europe, and Asia. Rich joined the Institute of Culinary Education in 2019, ICE, teaching plant-based culinary arts career classes and leading recreational classes in Ayurvedic, Asian, and vegan cuisines. He is also a graduate of Maharishi International University's master's degree program in Maharishi Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, a program where he is currently teaching as a TA. Wow. After reading this, I hope you're as excited as I am. And I realize how special it is to have a guest like Rich LaMarita. I hope you will find this series as enjoyable as I have. Now let's dive in. Good morning, Rich. How are you today?
Hey, Noreen, how's it going?
Great.
Fine.
I know today we've got some awesome topics and continuing our series on Ayurveda and food. And we're going to start with time, which most people don't think about when they think about food. And in Sanskrit, that's kala, time. So let's kick off with that. You have some things there about seasonal and daily. Let's talk about the time that we eat our meals during the day. Why is that important according to Ayurveda?
It's important because the doshas, well, digestion is strongest in certain points, in certain times of the day, according to Ayurveda. The doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they go in a rhythm throughout the day. Okay, so certain doshas are strongest in certain periods of time, and digestion is strongest in certain periods of time. To get into it in detail, kapha is strongest in the morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pitta then picks up from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Okay. Then Vata starts from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then it repeats. Kapha from
or 2 to 6 for Vata, right?
2 to 6. So did I say, yeah, whatever. Yeah, 2 to 6 for Vata.
Sure.
And then from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., you have kapha time again. And from 10 p.m. to
and then corresponding in the evening. So
yeah,
we're eating during the day, and so somebody's eating breakfast.
So basically it's recommended that, well, the idea is that your Agni is strongest at the time in the mid time of the day. Okay. When the sun is at its
that
peak,
makes sense because
the energy of the earth is at its strongest. The sun is a kind of is Agni, is fire. So your digestive system is actually strongest during that time. Okay. So therefore, one of the main principles of time in Ayurveda is that you eat your main meal around midday for maximum efficiency of your digestive system. Okay. Interestingly, many cultures in the past intuitively knew this because they had their main meals in the midday. and then in in the Latin American countries, you had siesta time. So you actually took a little break in the midday. In some of the European countries, particularly Italy, everything slows down and stops in the midday. You have you have a meal, and then stores shut down. So you're kind of resting in the midday, and then you pick up activity, after that. So that's one of the main principles of Ayurveda. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be eating regularly, but you should go with the strength of Agni. So your main meal is during that time. In the morning, you want to eat a little bit lighter. In the evening, you want to eat a little bit lighter. That's the idea.
Cool. And then I think in Ayurveda they say in the evening, don't eat too late as well. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, digesting food takes energy, and it takes time. It takes a good 3 hours to digest a full meal. So you would never want to, go to bed and have this conflict going on with your digestive system trying to be active and you going to sleep, where everything is quieting down. So
I like your choice of words, concert.
yeah.
Concert.
So
That's good.
so it's very important that that you don't eat that you try to eat at least in the early side of the evening, so that you're pretty much digested with your meal. Personally, I like to be finished eating by about 7 p.m. And I
Mhm.
don't like to eat anything until I go to bed. And not every time, not all the time. And if you feel hungry, a little bite of something might be fine. That's easy to digest. Okay. But you don't want to be
Sure.
putting heavy full meals into your body just before you're ready to settle your body down into sleep.
And of course, that's going to improve the quality of your sleep
Oh,
you're not.
dramatically,
Uh-huh.
dramatically. Yeah. So yeah, so that's one of the main concepts of time. The other
Sure.
concept
That's
of
great.
time is uh, eating seasonally. Your diet is
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's talk about seasonal eating. We're in let's see, what season are we in now? I'm thinking it's summer, but it's early, late spring, early summer right now. We're headed into early summer.
right.
So tell me
We're in
about
that
the
transition
summer
period
season.
now. We're in that transition period now between kapha season and pitta season. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of in the end stage of that transition, because we're pretty close to summer. The heat's starting to increase in New York. I'm in New York right now. Yesterday was in the 90s. It was a beach day, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a beach day. So there's less chill in the air. There's less, humidity in the air. It's not raining as much as it was, like last month. So this is a transition period still though. And we're transitioning from kapha into pitta. Okay. So kapha during kapha season, well, in the wintertime, think of what we've done. In the wintertime, we're kind of a little bit more inward. It's cold. You want to kind of conserve energy. You want to kind of add some extra layers onto your body, with clothing and also
Sure, but
with heavier
I'd like
foods.
to focus I'd actually like to focus on the summer season and what makes sense for art, because that's where people are coming into now. So
Yeah, but
how does our diet change during summer?
that's what's going on, because
Hmm.
it's all connected, because in that winter season you've packed on a little bit more pounds, right? So in the fall,
Hmm.
in the spring, when things start to get warmed up, the body starts to kind of let loose of these extra pounds, this extra kapha, this extra heaviness and earth that's in the body. Okay, that's been
Sure.
building up. All right, and that's why you see that's why during the springtime you have lots of colds, runny noses. People can get sick. It's a good time to do. It's a good time to do cleanses. All right, so now that stuff is kind of heading out. All right, so we have a lot of heat coming up right now. We have a lot of pitta. We're getting into pitta season. So you want to balance that. You don't want to continue. You don't want to eat things that are too heavy, because if you eat things that are too heavy, that's going to kind of start increasing kapha in the body. You want to stay kind of cool. You want to stay balanced, as opposed to the heat that we'll be going into. So your food, you want food that's going to be not that spicy, not that heavy, a little bit more cooling, a little bit more lighter for the season that we're going into.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I know the other concept in Ayurveda is for season is time of life. And we talk about the seasons of life.
Mm-hmm.
So how does our eating change, particularly when we're in the pitta stage in life and transitioning into kapha stage of life? So a little bit about that.
Okay. So the stages of life are,
Excuse me, vata stage of life, I meant.
yeah. Kapha stage of life is early. Pitta stage of life
Mhm.
is your midlife, and Vata stage of life is more into the elderly.
Mhm.
You want to definitely have that in mind, but in Ayurveda, one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't mean that just because you're elderly, you're going to be going on a Vata pacifying diet. You know, um,
Sure.
you have to kind of take it all with a little bit of a grain of salt in terms of who you are. About the stage of life, there tends to be a little bit more frailty, a little bit more dryness, um, anxiousness, things like that. A little bit more delicacy, and for some people who are going into that stage, that might come out more. Okay. So in that case, you do need to kind of think about foods that are very grounding, very nutritious. That's going to really help you, um, lead a good elderly life. Okay. Me personally, it's not that way. Okay.
Yeah, you bring up a
I'm
great
in my
point.
about the stage of life, but I don't follow a Vata diet, and I shouldn't be
Sure,
following a Vata diet. I don't have Vata Vata Vriddhi, Vata imbalances. I don't have
sure.
really too many signs of of the Vata stage of life. If anything,
Yeah, yeah,
the opposite.
that's cool. Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, first Vata stage is generally, Pitta stage is generally age 30 to 60. Obviously, these are generalities. And Vata after age 60. Um, but the point you bring up is great, and it's an Ayurvedic point. Ayurveda really is personalized approach to health.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these general rules, things we abide by, but it's really looking at the individual. So unlike modern medicine, we're looking at personalized approach to overall health. And it really depends on the strength of your digestion, the strength of your Agni. Wonderful. I'd like to move to our next topic, which is talking about basically Ayurveda has some quote unquote rules for the intake of food.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about you mentioned in your outline that you sent me, you talked a little bit about what are our what is our eating culture, what are our habits, mindful eating habits. Is there anything that you want to elaborate regarding that?
Uh, the rules for the intake of food, there's a lot of overlap between that section and the other sections that we covered. But there are basic, there are basic kind of principles that Ayurveda recommends. Um, Simple things like not eating when you're upset. That eating is a sacred time. You want to eat with intention. You want to be there with the food that you're eating and not be distracted on other things. Okay. So it's not a good idea to eat like let's say over a business lunch or uh, or if you're feeling emotionally upset and then you start going for food, to satisfy kind of an emotional need there. Ayurveda recommends eating in a pleasant atmosphere, good conversation, good, easy conversation with friends and family, or in silence. Many people like to eat in silence, and that's great too. Okay, either or. But it's not something that's going to really kind of distract you and pull you away from the actual process of eating. That's one thing. The second thing Ayurveda says is that while you're eating, to chew your food properly. That's extremely important. You should, the digestion starts physically in the mouth. We break down food. We turn the food into something called a bolus, which is a paste, kind of a paste in the mouth. It mixes with saliva, starts breaking down the simple carbs that we're eating. And it's important that the stomach gets food that's been properly chewed. There's things that I've heard, like make sure chew your food 20 times. I've heard a beautiful expression that says you should drink your solids and eat your liquids.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, things like this. But the idea is to chew your food. You really do need to chew your food before you swallow it, because it just makes it easier for the digestive system and for the stomach to process that food. So chewing food is another kind of a general rule. Another general rule is don't eat before the previous meal has been digested. Okay. Now we're talking about a full meal. So a full meal takes about 3 hours to digest. So you don't want to be eating a lot on top of that while it's digesting. Okay. Again, something a little bit light. If you want to feel a little hungry 1.5 hours later, you take a piece of fruit, that's fine. It's easy to digest. But you don't want to eat something heavy, or you don't want to actually eat another meal within that 3-hour period of time. Just think about, from a culinary point of view, imagine starting a pot of beans and it's cooking, and the beans take maybe an hour and 15 minutes or hour and a half. And you decide 45 minutes into it that, oh, it's not going to be enough. I need to add more beans. And you throw some uncooked, some raw beans on top of that, what's already cooking. It's not going to cook properly, right?
No,
So
there's nothing worse than hard beans.
Yeah. And the same is true in the stomach. The same is true in the
Yeah.
stomach. You can't have undigested food. You can have digested food, partially digested food mixing with undigested food. That's not a good idea. The rules of
Yeah, I
intake
think
also, yeah.
one thing I wanted to address regarding this in terms of just how we eat is most Americans, many Americans are, they're looking at their phone, they're looking at their computer, maybe they're watching TV. How does this impact digestion? And how
Same
does Ayurveda feel about this?
Yeah, that's what I started with in terms of you should eat with intention. You should eat with your intention on the food, enjoying the process of eating, because it's a magical process. It's a magical and very important process. So you don't want to eat with you don't want to eat with distractions. And that could be eating while you're on your phone, eating while you're looking at your computer, eating even while you're watching TV, eating, during a business lunch, where it really starts pulling the mind uh, away. And we know the mind and the body are connected, so that when you start engaging in something else, the body is also responding to that. Now it's different when you're eating, surrounded with family and enjoying conversation, you know,
Mm. Hmm.
because it's much lighter in tone.
Of course, of
You can
course.
always kind of, you know, shift your attention back to food very easily during that. In fact, I think it's kind
Sure.
of beneficial to eat with pleasantness around you, you know?
Mm.
So
Now I've heard
yeah,
something
where
about
do
the
we
blood flow to the, I've heard something about the blood flow that when you're engaged in these mental activities while you're eating, that, the blood flow, the blood now, the focus now is in the brain and mental activity, and that the digestion can be impaired as a result.
yeah, it would make sense because the mind and body are connected. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. I want to turn a little bit now to focus on the individual who's eating and the person's state physically and mentally. And you've made some reference to Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why that's important, why
They're
these
called
concepts are important?
Well, Sattva, Raja, and Tamas are what's called mental gunas, mental states, uh, and your mental state obviously is also going to affect your digestion. We just spoke about this in terms of when you're engaged in some activity and it's maybe brainy activity or business lunch, your blood is flowing to the brain. Same is true with the kind of the generalized mental state. So sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is a calm, peaceful, open, creative mental state. Okay. Rajasic is an overexcited, a mental state that's full of activity, movement. Okay. And a tamasic state is a state that's leaning towards lethargy and dullness. Okay. So obviously that's going to affect the way you eat depending on what mental state you're in. And therefore it's going to affect your digestion. Again, if you're in a settled, peaceful, open, expansive state, your awareness is going to be easily put onto food and easily put onto the whole process of eating and digestion. If you're in a dull, lethargic state, the body is very slow. Um, it's it's not going to be responding to digestive cues the way that you might. And if you're rajasic, eating in a rajasic state, the kind of an image of that would be, people like in the city who are eating while they're running to the subway, or
They're walking.
eating their sandwich while they're in the middle of the street, and
Mm, yeah,
trying to get from one place to another.
yeah. Well, going back to just overall these mental gunas, and the word guna means quality, or essentially qualities in our life.
Yeah.
It sounds like sattva is really where we want to be. So how do we encourage? I mean, sattva is much more than, it's also a yoga concept as well. Um, it's much more than food and eating. So what are some practices or things that we can do daily to encourage more of a sattvic state, mental state in our lives?
That's a great question. Meditation is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is easily number one, because it's all about being in a settled state of awareness, being in a, what Ayurveda calls a self-referral state of awareness. So meditation practice, proper rest, proper proper diet. Certain foods are going to increase a more sattvic state. It doesn't mean you should not be eating foods from other categories, because actually in the six tastes, they are categorized by whether or not they're sattvic or rajasic. And I believe only one of the tastes is actually sattvic. Okay. And that is the sweet taste.
I was going to say probably sweet, yeah.
Yeah, but the other tastes are generally categorized as more rajasic, which makes sense because these tastes, we need food for our activity. Okay. We really shouldn't think of the gunas, that rajasic and tamasic are actually something negative. They're not. They're needed. They're needed in life, but certainly you want to be leaning towards a more sattvic state. So your diet should be, in order to foster a more rajasic state, your diet should be more, I would say plant-based. I would definitely say more plant-based. Your diet should be, there are certain foods that are considered to be highly sattvic, such as, without getting into too much conversation or even controversy, is milk, ghee, okay, almonds, oranges, are supposed to be, honey are supposed to be a very good, sattvic foods. But kind of, think along the lines of more of a kind of a plant-based lighter diet, fosters more a sattvic nature. Things that are more spicy,
Freshly prepared.
yeah, freshly prepared, definitely. But things that are more spicy are going to be more rajasic. Things that are very heavy are going to be a little more tamasic. Okay.
Sure. So I love that. I love thinking about ways we can ways we can increase sattva in our lives. And I think some of the things I think about are how do we increase our prana? And the food is obviously a big component of that, but regular exercise, connection to nature,
Mm-hmm.
sunlight. In Ayurveda, I like what you said about mostly eating plant-based because energetically, more animal foods energetically are going to impact our mental state. And I love the fact that in Ayurveda gives us a roadmap to live a more sattvic life, which is the daily routine that's advocated, the seasonal routines that are advocated in Ayurveda. It's like if you follow these roadmaps, it's the road to health.
Mm-hmm.
Any feedback regarding what I just said?
Oh, I totally agree. Um, the daily routines and the seasonal routines are all about aligning ourselves with the rhythms of nature. Nature is very evolutionary. Nature is very progressive. And a sattvic state of mind is evolutionary and progressive. The rhythm of nature is very creative as well. So, you connect yourselves with these rhythms and your life seems to flow more smoothly. So definitely they are a way to increase sattva. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. One of the things that you talked about, we talked about this earlier, but in talking in focusing on the person who is eating. So Ayurveda's approach, personalized medicine. You talked earlier a little bit about the strength of a person's digestion. Is there any follow-up that you wanted to add regarding that? And some of the concepts that you mentioned were Sama Agni and Vata Vishama, Pitta Tikshna, and Kapha Manda.
Yeah, there are these styles of digestion. There are kind of three styles of digestion that are related to the doshas. You tend to be that style based on your predominant dosha. The goal is what's called Sama-Agni, and Sama-Agni is balanced digestion, good overall digestion, being able to digest your food properly, the least with great efficiency. Okay. But we do tend to fall into these kind of types. And the types are Vishama Agni. Vishama is associated more with Vata, a Vata characteristic. This is a type of person where the digestion would be characterized by irregularity. Okay. So in other words, one day the digestion is working well, next day it's not so well. One day they might feel a little bit, if they feel hungrier than the next day. One day their processes of elimination are different. Okay, quality of stool is different, bowel movements are at different times. So a lot of irregularity. If you're Vishama Agni, well, let's go through them all quickly. Tikshna Agni is associated with Pitta. It means you run a little bit hot. The digestion runs a little bit hot. It's sharp. It's the type of person where they absolutely need 3 meals a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They eat, they get hungry pretty soon afterwards. Okay. And then the Mandagni is a type of digestion that's a little bit on the slow side. Okay. So maybe they eat, they feel like it takes a while to digest, and they might not feel hungry for the rest of the day. All right. So we tend to be these types. It doesn't mean that you're out of balance. Okay. The ideal is Sama-Agni, but it doesn't mean if you have these types that you're out of balance, as long as you kind of understand your type of digestion and you're eating to kind of help along those lines of that particular digestion. Okay. For instance, if you're Tikshna Agni and you kind of run sharp, all right, you certainly don't want to be having a lot of foods that tend to be spicy and sharp, because that's going to only increase it. If they're the type of person that really likes to have 3 meals a day, so they shouldn't be skipping meals. Okay, if they feel like they need 3 meals a day. All right. So if you understand where who you are in terms of your dosha, your prakriti, and you understand what type of Agni you are, you can do fine. Okay. If it gets to a point where it gets out of balance, okay, it actually shifts to something called Agni Mandya. And Agni Mandya, that's the start of imbalance and indigestion. That's starting what Ayurveda call is a weak digestion, and that's going to create more problems. That's going to create ama in the body, or toxins, unprocessed food in the body that gets stuck, and it's going to start causing more increase in the doshas.
Yeah, no, that's really great. It's, what I love about what you said, and really what I love about Ayurveda is all about attuning and understanding your unique nature. And this really brings us to better health. Ayurveda also really emphasizes health and the digestive, how our digestion is functioning. Is it healthy? Is it Sama Agni? We really want to move toward that Sama Agni. And it's funny because modern medicine is catching up with the microbiome. So
Mhm.
Ayurveda's approach is, the imbalances start in our digestion, in our gut. And Ayurveda is about identifying imbalance and catching things early and not waiting until there's symptoms, more serious symptoms that appear. So it's just, it's such a powerful approach to overall health. Rich, we've covered so much. We've done 7 or 8 episodes on Ayurveda and food. We have a few more minutes. Wrap up, final comments,
Okay.
things, takeaways for people, that they can really bring into their lives that really show the practical and the real value of Ayurveda to their health.
Okay. Ayurveda is prevention oriented. When you practice Ayurveda, excuse me, when you practice Ayurveda, you are nipping disease in the bud. You are creating a condition in your body where disease does not thrive, does not grow. So that's very important. Um, we spent a lot of time on food and connecting it with the idea that when we understand Ayurvedic diet, that you need to understand 3 aspects to this. Number one is you have to understand the food concepts. What's going on? The 6 tastes are very important. Get your 6 tastes every day. Second is the tips that Ayurveda gives with regard to eating right that we went over today, such as eating your main meal midday, sipping water when you're sipping room temperature or warm water while you're eating, not eating when you're too distracted. And then your digestion, getting your digestion as strong and as efficient as possible. These 3 things go together to form really strong, powerful digestion. When you have strong digestion, your doshas are balanced. A few little tips,
Awesome.
takeaway tips,
Yeah.
how to strengthen
Yeah.
digestion.
Actually,
Very, very
I want to,
easy.
reframe that question. Sorry about that. I've heard when I don't remember exactly which Vaidya, but a Vaidya was asked if there was one, and this was something that I think Dr. Nancy Lansdorf shared about in asking a Vaidya if there was one thing that you can do to improve your health. The Vaidya indicated morning walk.
Yeah,
So let's transfer that over to what you and I have been talking about, Ayurveda and food. And we know health is much more comprehensive than food, but food
yeah.
is a major component.
So
Instead of asking you the question if there was one tip that you would give in
yeah,
terms of Ayurveda and food, give me your top 3 tips.
perfect. Beautiful.
And I
Okay.
and I know that's, it's not
No,
going to
no,
be
it's great.
this isn't going to be perfect, but let's do that. Let's have your
It's
top
great.
3 tips.
Okay. One of them is to sip warm water throughout the day.
Okay.
Drink a good amount of it. Okay. Number 2 is strengthen your digestion with ginger. Ginger is the universal medicine. You could make what's called you can make what's called a little ginger pickle and have it before a meal, or a little ginger tonic and have it before a meal, and it really helps to strengthen digestion. The ginger pickle is chopped ginger with the juice of a lemon and some sea salt in about equal portions. The ginger tonic is juice of a ginger and some honey, usually in about a 60-40 ratio. And take a teaspoon of that 15-20 minutes before a meal. you will notice an improvement in your digestion. Okay.
And the ginger pickle as well, 15 to 20 minutes before the meal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And in general, use ginger in your diet. Chop it up in your vegetables, what kind of food you're having, it doesn't matter. Ginger goes good with many, many things. Ginger is a universal medicine. It really is strengthening the digestion. And the third one is be regular with your eating. The digestive system needs some rest. Eat a meal. Give your digestive system some rest. Eat a meal. Give your digestive system some rest. Eat a meal. Okay. So
that's great because I've heard it said regarding Ayurveda, because sometimes people will say, well, I'm not hungry at noon or whatever it is. And I've heard the response given, you train yourself with regularity to be hungry.
beautiful. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Do it.
So it's just, you train your body and your body will be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the training is very easy. It's just follow the schedule, be regular.
Yeah.
So
Regular digestion
wonderful.
is Sama Agni. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Rich, this was awesome. I so appreciate it. And for our viewers and listeners, this is the last of a series on Ayurveda and food with Chef Rich and Ayurvedic practitioner, Chef Rich LaMarita. Rich, I learned a lot, and hopefully our viewers and listeners do as well. And I so appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Noreen. Appreciate it.